Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Turned himself into one of the best hitters in the game.
Kyle Schwarber with a tape measure shot. There's no park that can...
The Philadelphia Phillies offseason just went from zero to absolutely nuclear. And what we're about to reveal will have every fan in the Delaware Valley either jumping for joy or throwing their cheesesteak at the wall. We're talking about franchise-altering moves, jaw-dropping contract numbers that'll make your head spin, and a potential trade scenario so explosive it could reshape the entire National League landscape for years to come. Buckle up, because this off-season roller coaster is about to go completely off the rails, and the Phillies are sitting in the front car with their hands up, screaming at the top of their lungs. Let's cut right to the chase. Kyle Schwarber, the Schwarb Baron himself, the man who absolutely demolished National League pitching in 2025 with a career-high 56 home runs and a Major League-leading 132 RBIs, is about to get paid. And when we say paid, we're talking about the kind of money that makes your average person's eyes water. According to MLB insider Jon Heyman, Schwarber is looking at a 4-year, $140 million contract. That's $35 million per year for a designated hitter who just turned another year older. But wait, it gets even crazier. Heyman suggests that in a heated bidding war, Schwarber could command up to $40 million annually, or stretch that deal to 5 years and $175 million. We're talking about generational wealth for a player who can't play the field and is already on the wrong side of 30. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The market for Schwarber isn't just hot, it's absolutely scorching. Heyman describes it as a great market, and the teams circling around the Schwarb Baron read like a who's who of baseball's biggest spenders and most desperate franchises. The Cincinnati Reds are right there at the top of the list, and this isn't just some random connection. This is Schwarber's hometown team, the squad he grew up watching, the organization that represents everything he loved about baseball as a kid. He's even admitted publicly that finishing his career in Cincinnati would be something special, a storybook ending that would bring his journey full circle. That's the kind of sentimental pull that can override pure baseball logic and make a player take slightly less money to play where his heart truly belongs. But the Reds aren't alone in this feeding frenzy. The Baltimore Orioles, fresh off their own successful season and looking to add that veteran power presence to push them over the top, are in the mix. The Pittsburgh Pirates, perpetual bargain shoppers who rarely make these kinds of splashes, are somehow involved in conversations. The Boston Red Sox, always looking to make noise in the American League East, have their name thrown into the hat. The San Francisco Giants, desperate for any kind of offensive firepower after years of disappointing at the plate, are sniffing around. And perhaps most terrifyingly for Phillies fans, the New York Mets are lurking in the shadows. And we all know what happens when Steve Cohen decides he wants something. He opens up his billionaire checkbook and makes problems disappear with dollar signs. For the Phillies, this creates an absolute nightmare scenario. They want Schwarber back. Everybody in that clubhouse loves Kyle Schwarber. The fans adore him. He's become synonymous with Phillies baseball over the past few seasons, leading off games with moonshot home runs and bringing an energy to Citizens Bank Park that's simply irreplaceable. But here's the brutal truth that keeps Dave Dombrowski up at night. Paying a 30-something designated hitter $35 to $40 million per year for 4 or 5 years is exactly the kind of contract that can cripple a franchise. Schwarber just had a career year, the best season of his entire professional life. The chances of him replicating those numbers at age 31, 32, 33 are slim to none. Father Time is undefeated, and he's especially merciless to players who rely on bat speed and raw power. Those skills deteriorate fast, and when they go quickly and without warning. The analytics tell a scary story. Designated hitters who sign massive contracts after career years almost never live up to the deal. The back end of these contracts becomes an albatross around the team's neck, eating up payroll space that could be used to address other needs, while the player's production falls off a cliff. The Phillies have been burned by these kinds of deals before, and there's real fear in the front office about making the same mistake again. But the alternative is equally terrifying. Letting Schwarber walk to a division rival or watching him help another contender win the World Series while the Phillies scramble to replace his production. It's a lose-lose situation disguised as a tough decision, and the clock is ticking toward a resolution that will define the franchise's immediate future. Meanwhile, while the Schwarber saga plays out like a slow-motion car crash, another story is developing that could be the Phillies' escape hatch from this entire mess. Jarren Duran, the Boston Red Sox outfielder who took the American League by storm in 2024, is reportedly available. And not just available in that everything's available for the right price way that GMs always talk about. We're talking genuinely available with the Red Sox actively shopping him and entertaining serious offers. This is where things get absolutely fascinating for Philadelphia, because Duran represents everything the Phillies desperately need and solves multiple problems with one explosive move. Let's talk about what Jarren Duran brings to the table, because his 2024 season was nothing short of spectacular. He slashed .285 at the plate, led all of Major League Baseball with 48 doubles, led the entire sport with 14 triples, mashed 21 home runs, drove in 75 runs, and stole 34 bases. He was an all-star. He finished 8th in American League MVP voting. He won the Home Run Derby for the National League in that new swing-off format. This wasn't just a good season. This was an elite, superstar caliber campaign that put him in conversations with the best players in baseball. And here's the kicker. He's only 29 years old and under team control through 2028. That's 3 more years of arbitration-controlled salary before he even sniffs free agency, which means whoever acquires him gets 3 years of elite production at a fraction of what they'd pay on the open market. Sure, his 2025 season wasn't quite as spectacular. The batting average dipped to .256, the home runs dropped to 16, and the stolen bases fell to 24. But he still led the American League with 13 triples, racked up 41 doubles, and drove in a career-high 84 runs. Those are still phenomenal numbers for most players, and the drop-off can be explained by the natural variance that happens over the course of a baseball season. The talent is still there, the skills are still elite, and he's exactly the kind of player who could thrive in the National League East with the short porch in right field at Citizens Bank Park. The Phillies have been desperate for outfield help, and Duran is the kind of impact player who doesn't just fill a need, he transforms the entire lineup. But here's where this story takes its most dramatic turn. The Phillies have something the Red Sox desperately want, and his name is Alec Bohm. The 29-year-old third baseman has been the subject of trade rumors for over a year now, with the Phillies shopping him last offseason and getting lukewarm responses from around the league. But circumstances have changed dramatically. Alex Bregman, the Red Sox's third baseman in 2025, is now a free agent and might not be back in Boston. That creates a gaping hole at the hot corner that needs to be filled immediately. And Bohm, despite his limitations, is still an all-star caliber player who can hit for average, find gaps, and drive in runs. He's posted back-to-back seasons with 97 RBIs, he's solid defensively, and he's exactly the kind of proven major leaguer that contending teams need. The trade framework that's been floating around social media and insider circles is absolutely fascinating. Alec Bohm and Johan Rojas to the Red Sox for Jarren Duran. Some variations include Brandon Marsh instead of Rojas, or a mid-tier pitching prospect thrown in to sweeten the deal. But the core concept remains the same. The Phillies move on from Bohm, who's about to enter his final year of team control before free agency, and they get back a younger, more dynamic player with more years of control and a higher ceiling. They also free up third base to make a play for one of the big-name free agents still available. Guys like Alex Bregman, Munetaka Murakami, the Japanese sensation, or veteran slugger Eugenio Suarez. Let's break down why this trade makes sense for both sides, because it's not often you see a deal that genuinely helps both franchises. For the Phillies, they solve their outfield crisis in one move. Duran gives them a legitimate leadoff hitter with speed, power, and the ability to play all three outfield positions at an elite level. He's a left-handed bat, which doesn't address their need for right-handed power, but his talent level is so high that it doesn't matter. You don't pass on elite players because they don't fit a specific profile. You acquire elite players and figure out the rest later. Trading Bohm opens up financial flexibility and roster space to pursue those big-ticket third basemen in free agency, potentially upgrading at the position while simultaneously fixing the outfield. It's the kind of two-birds, one-stone move that can transform a good team into a championship contender overnight. For the Red Sox, they get a proven third baseman in Bohm who can step in immediately and produce, plus either a young toolsy outfielder in Rojas who's shown elite speed and defense even if the bat hasn't caught up yet, or a proven major leaguer in Marsh who still has upside at 27 years old. They also have the luxury of surplus outfielders with Roman Anthony, their top prospect who debuted in June at age 21, and Wilyer Abreu, who's 26 and brings elite defense to the table. Trading Duran isn't moving their best player. It's capitalizing on their organizational depth to address a more pressing need. That's smart roster construction, and it's exactly the kind of move that analytical front offices make when they see an opportunity to improve in multiple areas at once. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, Bohm's value. When the Phillies were shopping him last offseason, they couldn't get the returns they wanted. Teams weren't biting on the asking price, particularly the Seattle Mariners, who were the most frequently mentioned suitor. That was when Bohm had 2 years of team control remaining. Now he's down to just 1 year before free agency, which theoretically should decrease his trade value. How does he suddenly become valuable enough to land Jarren Duran, who has 3 years of control and just put up back-to-back elite seasons? The answer lies in timing and need. Last offseason, the third base market wasn't desperate. Teams could afford to wait and see what developed. This offseason, with Bregman, Murakami, and Suarez all potentially changing addresses, the dominoes are falling fast. The Red Sox can't afford to enter 2026 with a question mark at third base, and Bohm represents the safest, most proven option available via trade. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and desperation drives up prices. The addition of Rojas or Marsh or a pitching prospect isn't just window dressing, it's the piece that makes this deal palatable for Boston. Rojas, despite his offensive struggles at the major league level, is still just 25 years old. He's hitting well in the Dominican Winter League, showing that the bat might finally be coming around. His speed is elite, his defense is Gold Glove caliber, and those tools don't disappear. He could develop into a valuable fourth outfielder or platoon player, the kind of Swiss Army knife that every winning team needs. Marsh, meanwhile, has been maddeningly inconsistent in Philadelphia, but still possesses the raw talent that made him a highly regarded prospect. At 27, he's young enough to figure it out, and a change of scenery might be exactly what he needs to unlock his potential. For the Red Sox, who have openly committed to improving their pitching staff, a mid-tier pitching prospect like Gene Cabrera, the Phillies' number 11 prospect, who's close to Major League ready at 24 years old, could be the exact type of live arm they need to bolster their rotation or bullpen depth. Now, let's address the financial implications, because this is where things get really interesting for the Phillies' salary structure. If they move on from Bohm, they're removing roughly $8 to $10 million from their projected 2026 payroll, depending on his arbitration settlement. Trading for Duran brings in a salary in the $5 to $7 million range for 2026 as he goes through his second year of arbitration, meaning the net difference is minimal. But here's where it gets spicy. By not re-signing Schwarber at $35 to $40 million per year and instead acquiring Duran at a fraction of that cost, the Phillies suddenly have $25 to $30 million to play with in free agency. That's Bregman money. That's potentially Murakami money if they're willing to go over the luxury tax threshold. That's the financial flexibility that allows Dave Dombrowski to be aggressive at multiple positions instead of putting all his eggs in the Schwarber basket and hoping the aging slugger doesn't decline precipitously. The beauty of landing someone like Alex Bregman can't be overstated. The 30-year-old, turning 31 during the season, is coming off a season where he hit 259 with 26 home runs and 75 RBIs for the Red Sox. He's a two-time All-Star, a World Series champion, and brings a level of playoff experience and clutch hitting that the Phillies desperately need. He's also a significantly better defender than Bohm, which would improve the Phillies' overall defensive metrics. The knock on Bregman is the same as Schwarber: age and the massive contract he's seeking. But at least Bregman is a younger 30 than Schwarber, plays a premium defensive position, and his game doesn't rely solely on raw power that will fade with age. His approach, his ability to work counts, and his baseball IQ give him a longer shelf life than a pure slugger. Munetaka Murakami represents the wild card option, the sexy pick that has Phillies fans salivating at the possibilities. The 25-year-old Japanese sensation has been posted by his Nippon professional baseball team, making him available to Major League Baseball clubs. He's a switch-hitting third baseman and first baseman who can also DH, giving the Phillies incredible lineup flexibility. He mashed in Japan, showing legitimate middle-of-the-order power from both sides of the plate, and at 25, he's entering his prime years. The concern with Japanese position players has always been how their skills translate to Major League Baseball. But the recent success stories of Shohei Ohtani, Seiya Suzuki, and others have shown that elite talent is elite talent regardless of where it develops. If Murakami even reaches 80% of his Japanese production in MLB, he's an all-star caliber player on a team-friendly deal for the first few years. That's the kind of calculated risk that championship organizations take. Eugenio Suarez, the veteran option, brings a different profile entirely. The 33-year-old, turning 34 during the season, isn't the sexy pick, but he's the steady, reliable choice. He's coming off a season where he hit 240 with 30 home runs and 91 RBIs for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's got legitimate power from the right side. He's defensively solid at third base, and he's been there and done that in big moments. He won't command the massive multi-year deal that Bregman will seek, making him the cost-effective option that still represents a significant upgrade over an aging Bohm or a question mark at the position. For a team trying to balance financial flexibility with immediate championship aspirations, Suarez might be the smartest play. But let's circle back to the Duran piece of this equation because his addition fundamentally changes how the Phillies lineup functions. Imagine a batting order that features Duran in the leadoff spot, his speed and ability to get on base setting the table. That changes everything for the middle of the order, putting more pressure on opposing pitchers and creating more RBI opportunities for the big boppers hitting behind him. His defensive versatility allows the Phillies to shuffle their outfield alignment based on matchups, and his base-running ability adds a dimension that Philadelphia's offense has sorely lacked. They've been a slow, plodding team that relies on the three-run homer and not much else. Adding Duran's Speed Force's defenses to respect the running game opens up holes in the infield and creates havoc that manifests in multiple ways beyond the box score. The counter-argument to all of this, of course, is that Duran's playoff performance in 2025 was abysmal. He went 1 for 11 with 4 strikeouts in 3 games as the Red Sox were bounced from the postseason. That's the kind of small sample size that can torpedo a player's trade value or make a front office think twice about surrendering significant assets. But 3 games is nothing in baseball terms. It's statistical noise, an insignificant blip that says more about variance than it does about ability. Mike Trout has had terrible playoff series. Bryce Harper has gone cold in the postseason. It happens to everyone, and using a 3-game sample to evaluate a player who's put up multiple seasons of elite production is the kind of reactionary thinking that bad organizations fall victim to, while smart ones exploit the opportunity. The timing of all this couldn't be more crucial. The winter meetings are starting next week, and that's when the offseason traditionally kicks into high gear. General managers from all 30 teams will be in the same hotel, having face-to-face conversations, making deals in the hallways and hotel bars. and generally creating the kind of frenetic energy that leads to franchise-altering moves. The Phillies need to strike before the market gets away from them. If Bregman signs elsewhere, if Murakami chooses a different team, if Duran gets traded to someone else, their options narrow dramatically, and they're left scrambling to fill holes with lesser players at inflated prices. This is the moment where championship windows either open wider or start to close, and Dave Dombrowski knows it. There's also the psychological element to consider for the Phillies fan base and clubhouse. Losing Schwarber would hurt. There's no sugarcoating that reality. He's been a fan favorite, a clubhouse leader, and the emotional heartbeat of this team's offensive identity. But if they lose Schwarber and simultaneously add Duran and a premier third baseman, that's addition by subtraction at its finest. It's the front office showing the fan base and the players that they're committed to winning now, that they're not content to run it back with the same core and hope for different results. It's a statement that the organization is willing to make uncomfortable moves to get better, even if those moves are unpopular in the short term. Let's also discuss the ripple effects throughout the division. If the Phillies successfully pull off this kind of offseason, adding Duran and landing one of the big-name third basemen while maintaining their pitching staff, they instantly become the favorites in the National League East. The Atlanta Braves are dealing with their own questions about their rotation and lineup construction. The New York Mets are trying to build a contender through free agency, but don't have the organizational depth that Philadelphia possesses. The Washington Nationals are still in rebuild mode, and the Miami Marlins are perpetually a few years away from contention. This is the Phillies' division to lose, and making these kinds of aggressive moves would put distance between them and their rivals. But here's the brutal honesty that needs to be stated. There's a very real possibility that none of this happens. Schwarber could take the Phillies' money and run. The Duran trade could fall apart over disagreements about prospects. Bregman could choose the Mets. Murakami could flop. And the Phillies could enter 2026 with the same basic roster they had in 2025, with 1 year older and 1 year closer to their window closing. That's the nightmare scenario that keeps fans up at night, refreshing Twitter and Reddit for any shred of news that suggests movement in the right direction. The stakes couldn't be higher for this franchise. They've been to the playoffs multiple times in recent years, made deep runs, gotten agonizingly close to World Series appearances, but haven't been able to break through and win it all. The core is aging, the financial commitments are piling up, and the clock is ticking on this championship window. They can't afford to waste another year of Bryce Harper's prime, another year of Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola anchoring the rotation, another year of this roster's peak performance window. Every decision matters. Every move has consequences that will reverberate for years, and the margin for error is razor thin. This offseason is defining the next era of Phillies baseball. Will they be bold enough to let Schwarber walk and reinvest that money elsewhere? Will they have the guts to pull the trigger on a Bohm trade that solves multiple problems simultaneously? Will they land one of the premier third basemen available and finally solidify that position for years to come? Or will they play it safe, run it back with minor tweaks, and hope that incremental improvements are enough to get them over the hump? These are the questions that will be answered over the next few weeks, and Phillies fans deserve aggressive, intelligent, forward-thinking answers that prioritize winning championships over maintaining comfortable familiarity. The chess pieces are moving, the phone lines are buzzing, and Dave Dombrowski is working the phones trying to construct the perfect roster for a 2026 championship run. The Schwarber saga will resolve one way or another. The Duran trade talks will either gain momentum or fizzle out, and the third base market will eventually settle with players finding new homes. Where the Phillies land when the dust settles will determine whether 2026 is the year they finally break through or another frustrating season of what-ifs and almosts. So there you have it, Phillies faithful. The offseason is heating up, the possibilities are endless, and the next few weeks will make or break this franchise's championship aspirations. Are you team pay Schwarber whatever it takes, or team let him walk and upgrade everywhere else? Do you want the Duran trade to happen? Or are you terrified of giving up Bohm? Drop your takes in the comments below, hit that like button if you're as obsessed with this offseason as we are, and make sure you're subscribed because the winter meetings start next week and we'll be covering every rumor, every report, and every move as it happens. This is the most important offseason in recent Phillies history, and you don't want to miss a single second of it. Go Phillies! See you in the next one.